I have been on some form of video meeting since 10 a.m. this morning.
Oh, wow. Wow. We're all set, Aaron, whenever you want to. That's terrible, Perry.
I had my CIC update, which Arnie knows about, for 8 hours, then a client meeting, and straight into this. So I'm ready to go. When you are, Arnie.
We are ready.
We're ready, Joe?
Yep.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 15th, 2022 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. We will open with the roll call. Ms. Hostetter.
Here.
Mr. Kiokio. Yeah, I think you're on mute, Bob.
Yeah, no wonder why no one was answering. Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Selvane.
Here.
Mr. Renz is absent. Mr. Haas.
Here.
And Chairman Finaldi is here. Mr. Haas, would you sit in this evening for the open seat?
Yes.
Thank you. Joanne, I believe we have not yet received the minutes of the June meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're not done. I'm sorry.
No problem. We'll postpone the acceptance of the minutes of the June 1st, 2022 meeting. Let the record show that our meeting is scheduled for July 6th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Looking at our agenda, you'll see item 2 under continuation of public hearings, the matter of 95 Mill Plain Road LLC, the self-storage facility. We did receive a letter from Ben Dodo today, which I'll read into the record briefly. June 15th, 2022, Mr. Arnold Finaldi Jr., Chairman, Planning Commission, City of Danbury, 155 Deer Hill Avenue, Danbury, Connecticut, 06810. Re. Special exception 787, Diamond Point Development, 95 Mill Plain, Assessor's Lot number C14003. Dear Mr. Finaldi, we are waiting on city staff reports relative to revisions response made after the 6/1/22 public hearing. Please accept this letter as our request to continue tonight's public hearing until the next regularly scheduled meeting on 7/6/22. It is our understanding that no testimony will be heard tonight. We are also granting a one-day extension to the public hearing to 7/6/22. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or need additional information. Sincerely, Benjamin V. Dodo, 3rd Public and PE, carbon copy, Diamond Point Development. So we will not be hearing any testimony on the matter of 95 Mill Plain Road LLC tonight. That application will be continued. So if there's anyone on wishing to participate in that particular application, we will be continuing it, as I said. Before we move to our first public hearing, I will read the standard virtual Zoom meeting intro. This meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions regarding how to participate in the meeting, please contact City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to the Planning and Zoning Department, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Finally, please remember that technology glitches do sometimes occur. Please be patient if that happens. And before we go into our first public hearing, just for the record, I did have the opportunity to view the video of the meeting of June 1st. So I am eligible to vote. All right. Moving forward. Public hearing, number 1, 190 White Street LLC, Mars Electric LLC. Application for revised special exception, revised site plan to allow expansion of existing daycare center, Twinkle Little Star Daycare in the CG20 zone, 190 White Street, rear J13004, special exception number 672. I will read the legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold a public hearing commencing at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, June 15, 2022, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matter. 190 White Street LLC, Mars Electric LLC, application for revised special exception, revised site plan to allow expansion of existing daycare, Twinkle Little Star Daycare in the CG20 zone, 190 White Street rear, J13004, special exception number 672. A copy of this application is on file in the Planning and Zoning Office for public inspection. Parties and interested citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and application materials and view the meeting in real time on YouTube, and if necessary, we'll note a change in the location of the meeting to the council chambers in Danbury City Hall located at 155 Deerfield Avenue, Danbury, Connecticut. Arnold E. Finaldi Jr., Chairman. Posted on city website and town clerk's office on June 1st, 2022. Published in the News Times on June 3rd and June 10th, 2022. Purchase order number 2022-174. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application?
I do.
Diane.
Good evening. For the record, Dinas Verbicus, professional engineer with Artel Engineering Group with an office in Brookfield, Connecticut, here on behalf of the applicant for the proposed expansion of an existing daycare center at the property known as 190 White Street. The property itself is a rear parcel accessed from White Street, just with its driveway located just to the west of the college parking garage. And as you descend down into the property, it leads you into the existing building, which is about 15,000 square feet in size. When our firm first got involved with this property, the building was utilized as a electrical contractor's office, warehouse, general contractor's offices, some outside storage and the like. And we were asked at that time to utilize a portion of that building for a daycare center. It was a hats off to kids. And things have progressed from then. I believe back in 2017, give or take, there was a waiver for a change of use to utilize a portion of the building for a church. It was about 3,000 square feet, give or take. And then there was, I think, a subsequent application for a little expansion of that use, although that doesn't really matter at this point because here we are looking to occupy the entire building with the daycare center and make modifications to the space that is no longer occupied by the church. Utilize that for additional rooms, a gymnasium, and the like for a daycare center. If you like, I can try to share a screen of the plan if you'd like to take a peek at what it is we're proposing. But in general, very minimal changes to the site itself, which will become apparent when we show you the plan. But basically the changes include the construction of another outdoor play area, additional 11 parking spaces, and a few landscape islands to help manage some of the parking. But again, if I can share the screen,
Okay,
That would be great.
go ahead.
And then if I could remember how to do it, that would be even more great.
Well, everything was distributed, all of your drawings were distributed, and sometimes I still print the old paper copies, so I think we have them if you can't get them shared.
Yep, I'm getting there. For some reason, it's always tricks me. Sorry, folks. Sorry for the delay.
I should stop printing paper, but I can't break this habit after 20 years.
Goodness gracious. I've got it on my screen, but I don't see it in the share screen. Let me try again.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm having difficulties.
No problem, Dinas. You heard my intro. Technology glitches do sometimes occur.
Yeah, I would love to blame technology, but it's my my inability here to get into it. Goodness gracious, I'm sorry. Let me try one more time.
Dinus, I can share. I just pulled it up from the agenda. I can share it if you want.
I thank you. I thank you for that. I've got it on my screen, but it's not showing up in my share.
Everyone see that?
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay, I'm sharing this, so
Hey, I see it. It's great.
I'm just trying to,
Um,
if I can zoom in a little
yeah,
bit.
so as you see on the screen, the property itself is kind of rectangular in size with a little bump or triangular bump out at the north edge. So that edge of the property is a little bit a little different, but the property itself is about 1.3 acres in size, and the building is kind of in an inverted L shape in the northeast corner. The property currently has about 47 parking spaces located along the southerly property line, along the southern face of the existing building. There are some handicap spaces and a standard space. And then along the north property line, we've got some additional spaces and a few more spaces kind of in the middle in front of some storage barns or sheds and containers that are on the west side of the site. What we're proposing is a small expansion of a play area of about 15 feet by 45 feet in size. And that's located, proposed to be located to the west of the existing play areas, which are located alongside the west of the existing building, kind of within the elbow of the building. So we're going to bump out an additional play area a little bit further to the west, and that will be kept free and clear of any parking or vehicle travel. There's a proposed fire lane as currently exists along the play areas, and then we're proposing our additional parking of 11 spaces, kind of facing nose to nose with the existing parking spaces that are, I'm going to say, centrally located on the property, or let's say within that that dark dashed line that cuts through that property. So the space, once it's finalized and utilized for exclusively for a daycare, would be suitable for up to 180 students, which will require a staff of about 39 teachers and assistants. Parking required for this use is 58 spaces, and we'll have just that amount. We'll have 58, including 3 handicap spaces. And of course, there's a rather large area on the property. I'm going to say in the southern third or central southern, I don't even know how to describe it, but off to the west of the existing building, plenty of room for expansion for parking or reconfiguration of parking if or future thoughts come into play for additional play area or something of the like. So in other words, the site is suitably sized for the existing use and the proposed use. We're in receipt of comments from staff and we're working on addressing the comments, although the comments themselves are pretty, what I'd say, light and straightforward and such that I feel that if the commission so chose, things could move on and a lot of these items could be, or all the items could be conditioned should the commission choose. One of the things that's slowing the process of response is the request for an updated A2 survey. Right now, we're working with a survey from the original application back in 2008, but I'd like to say that there's not much that has changed since then, with perhaps the exception of a sidewalk widening to the northwestern portion of the building and on the northern side of the building. But aside from that, everything looks generally as it did and as was proposed and approved for the initial Hats Off to Kids application. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission might have. And thanks for sharing your screen, Jennifer. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dinas. Before I ask for questions, let me just ask if there's anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application. Anyone else in favor? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Commission members, are there any questions for Dinas at this time? Anybody? Mr. Kiokio.
Diane, how do you access the property? Is it in the kind of the southeast corner down there by the parking and where the handicap is? Is that where the driveway entrance is?
No, actually, the driveway entrance is to the northeast. So if you follow the northern, the eastern side of the building, the driveway kind of squiggles down. There you go, where Jennifer's drawing from White Street down into the back. And you know, roughly the property is located kind of behind where the work is currently being done for the for the Sonic restaurant.
Got it. And then so you come down the driveway from White Street, and then how do you get to the parking area?
So you continue and you drive along the what is the existing east face of the building, and as you get to the back of the building, that's where the main entrance is and all the parking is located. It's you know, relatively simple maneuvers to get in and to park. The biggest challenge, I think, is actually spotting the driveway on White Street. It's kind of a nondescript driveway.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It took me a minute to figure out where this place was too. I mean, you know, we've all been up and down White Street a million times, but you know, this is not on White Street. It's tucked in the back, so you have to go back there to take a look at it. Is there any other questions for Dinas at this time, commission members? Okay.
I got one.
Oh, please, I didn't,
That's okay. I realized I was on mute.
go right.
So about the two containers that are out there that are no longer accessory use, I think in the documentation, it was noted that they will be removed. Is that your understanding?
At this point, I don't think there's any intention to remove them. The daycare center could utilize those barns or structures for storage of play equipment and other things associated with the use. But at this point, there's no intention to
the use is now associated with the daycare center, so that makes it, I guess, what it is right now for the electrical people.
Correct. The
Okay.
electrical people the intention is to sell the property to the daycare provider. So the
Okay,
daycare will
good.
have exclusive ownership and use of the property with no intention of having anyone else there.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Helen. Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
That hit what I was thinking about, so thank you.
Okay, good. Jen,
Mr.
I'm
I was
trying
gonna,
to,
yeah,
you know,
I was
as-
gonna,
as
go
we
ahead,
look at,
sorry.
as we look at our code going forward here, are we all talking at the same time? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
Unless there's a real compelling reason, and I'll certainly open that up to the commission. I'd love to get this thing closed. We got a lot of stuff coming down the road, and I don't see any open issues from any department that can't be conditioned in the resolution. Well, where are you on this?
Mr. Chairman, I think, and what I wanted to clarify with Helen and Perry's question about the storage, and my comment in my staff report, Dynas has agreed to make all of the changes requested in the staff report. So that issue about the accessory use goes away. If it's accessory to the daycare, it's fine. So Dynas has agreed to make all those changes. And again, he's noted on the record that he'll accommodate all of the comments in the staff report, as well as the engineering department. They had a handful of comments. Again, more, cleaning the existing drainage system out there and making sure that it's functioning properly. So with that, if, I don't see any big reason to keep it open. These are things that we can certainly condition in the approval. If that's what the commission desires when they provide guidance, we can definitely add these as requirements prior to the issuance of any permits.
Okay, good. Commission members, you've heard what Jennifer and I said. If anyone is so inclined, you can make a motion to close the public hearing and move it to item 2 under old business. Well, that's 2 different motions, but
Okay, well, so moved on closing the public hearing.
Second,
motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The public hearing is closed. Can someone make a motion to move it to item 2 under old business?
I'll make
So
that motion.
Okay, motion made, and I think Perry seconded it. Didn't get who made the motion, but hopefully Joanne did. Okay, motion made and seconded to move this to item 2 under our old business for discussion and possible action agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This matter will be moved to item 2 under our old business for discussion and possible action. Thank you, Dynas.
Thank you all for listening, and I'm sorry to leave, but
Nope.
it was a pleasure. Have a great evening.
Take care. Okay, we're going to keep moving, folks, right to continuation of public hearings. Item 1, Pioneer Realty LLC, application for special exception site plan approval for 1, use generating over 500 vehicle trips per day, and 2, sale or rental of automobiles and trucks in accordance with section 6A5G of the zoning regulations, Curry Automotive in the IL40 zone, 1 and 5 Myronbrook Road, G18007 and G18016, special exception number 785. Distributed was also the new staff reports through 6/13/22. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application?
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening.
So for the record, my name is Megan Miles. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy, office at 195 Church Street in New Haven. For those who were here at the last hearing, as you can tell, I'm happy to report my voice is back. Thank you for struggling through that with me at the last hearing. I'm back online, so I can talk tonight and hopefully wrap this up. So that's good news. My understanding is that my full team's on the line, by the way, should you have any questions, but my understanding is that we actually, we continued the hearing for two limited reasons. One is we were still waiting on formal comments from the engineering department. Those comments were received. My team responded. I believe we received them late last week. We submitted formal responses today. My engineer, Emily Jones of Civil One, is on the line. I think she's going to give you a brief summary of slight changes to the site plan that were made in response to those comments. And then also we left it open for a couple outstanding comments from the traffic department. I'll address those briefly now. Again, I'm cognizant of everyone's time. The first was there's been some back and forth about installation of a sidewalk along Sugar Hollow Road. We've received requests for a sidewalk all along the three frontages. As a reminder, it fronts on three roads: Wallingford Road, Myrybrook Road, and Sugar Hollow Road. In connection with this development, they will be widening Wallingford Road and installing sidewalks along Wallingford and Myrybrook. And there's been some back and forth about the feasibility of a sidewalk on Sugar Hollow Road. I can confirm, though, that the applicant is more than willing to install a sidewalk along that frontage in connection with this development, and where we confirmed it's feasible. And so I think likely the next step is we accept a condition of approval to just final spec that out in coordination with either the planning and zoning department or the engineering department. But I think we're all optimistic that that's feasible and it can occur in connection with the construction. And then the other issue was the traffic department requested that the applicant install, I believe the terminology was 360 degree vehicle detection equipment. So cameras on the signals at three intersections: the intersection of Sugar Hollow and Myrybrook, and then the Route 7 off ramp on Sugar Hollow Road, and the Route 7 on and off ramp at Worcester Heights Road. So that one we had some back and forth with staff and with both the planning and zoning office and the traffic department. That one was not nearly as willing to accept. I submitted a letter today, but our concerns were twofold. First, a general concern about being the party with the responsibility to install cameras. Curry Automotive, they're a car dealership, and so it felt like the more appropriate party for the upgrades to traffic infrastructure in the city was the city, and also a position that, because we had a traffic report that found no need for offsite improvements, and because a lot of customers, a lot of businesses in the area use these intersections, that we felt that the full share of these upgrades should not fall on the applicant. I had multiple calls with Jennifer about this issue, and Jennifer dug in her heels as well. But I'm happy to report, though, that the applicant is offering, and we put this in writing, to contribute a cash payment of $50,000 to the city for the city to install the cameras. So I believe that's a great resolution. The applicant is really excited about this development and wants to develop this site. So I'm optimistic this resolves it, and this is a nice middle ground. But I'll defer to Jennifer for any further comments on that. So with that, I'm going to have Emily make a brief presentation. I just have a couple concluding thoughts, and I think that's it. But we're here for any questions, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. For the record, my name is Emily Jones, professional engineer with Civil One Engineering in Woodbury. After the last meeting, we did receive a formal review memo from the engineering department, and we have since made the revisions that Ms. Green recommended. There was nothing really in the memo that was alarming or something that was not feasible. We had a few minor changes, honestly, mainly like labeling changes, adding the site, distance for the driveway along Wallingford Road. Obviously, we can see all the way to the end of the road and all the way to the intersection, but we wanted that labeled. A few more spot shot labels along the wall. A few differences in the way she wanted to see some data in the stormwater management report. And so everything has been incorporated into this latest revision set of plans. And the only things I think that are outstanding and that maybe could be a condition of approval is that we're waiting on an actual shop drawing from Stormtrap, which is the manufacturer of the underground detention chambers. So we had some general details on the plans, and I actually took those off because her comments made me realize they were a little bit confusing. So I'd rather just get, now that the design has been reviewed and is final, I sent the information off to Stormtrap to get those shop drawings with the actual layout and their specific elevation. So we owe that to her as a final review. And then also construction services requested that we put in a pedestrian ramp on the opposite side of Wallingford Road. So we have a sidewalk along Myrie Brook Road and then a crosswalk along Wallingford Road. So we'll have to put that pedestrian ramp in on the opposite side of Wallingford. And then of course the sidewalk along Sugar Hollow Road that Megan discussed. But everything else was really mostly clarification, a few minor corrections and errors in the calculations, but nothing that changed the calculations, really just for clarity's sake. So I think that we addressed most of them. I really have no issues with any of her comments, and I don't see any problem with taking care of those last few items at any point. So that's it.
Thank you. I'll go back to Megan. Was there anything you wanted to add at this point, Megan, or can I call the rest of the in favor or opposed? Is she still there?
I'll finish at the end. Go ahead and call remaining public comment, and then I'll just provide responses if necessary.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, hearing none, Megan, it's all yours.
Back. Okay, so just the concluding thoughts I wanted to provide is that this is a really highly visible site, and my understanding is it's been a thorn in the side of the city for a very long time. And tonight, this application is a really exciting development. It's a dramatic improvement for this site from longstanding conditions. And a couple years ago now, the city actually amended the zoning regulations to permit this use with special exception review, and it's paid off. So you have an application for development of the site with a Mercedes-Benz car dealership. It's really high quality development, economic use, and it's really an appropriate use for the area. It's right next to the airport, and it's surrounded by other transportation uses, particularly a number of car dealerships. So with that, I think that this application meets the requirements for a special exception, and we ask that you approve it.
Thank you very much, Megan. Appreciate it. Jen, I just want to confirm on the record that the arrangement for the video detection cameras is permissible under, land use law, land use regulations. So my understanding is the applicant's going to give us a flat $50,000 payment, and it's the city that's going to buy, install, and monitor the cameras. Do I have that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I spoke with the city traffic engineer as well as Sharon. And, this is something that we can certainly agree to. The first part is, acknowledging it in the record. We have the letter from Megan, as she'd suggested in her the beginning of her presentation. The department and the traffic engineer concur, and the traffic engineer believes that the lump sum payment of $50,000 will allow for the purchase and the installation of those 3 video detection cameras. Again, through the city, and the city would own the equipment and certainly monitor as part of the traffic management within the city.
Okay, and again, the fee, $50,000, we are comfortable that covers the cost of the installation.
Yes, yes, I double checked with the traffic engineer. He was satisfied that that amount would be sufficient.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commission members, questions for the applicant, questions for staff?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I have one quick question. And this actually kind of sprung up at the end of the day today. With the sidewalk on Myrybrook Road, and this has been a moving target for the past 3 to 4 weeks. And we finally were able to get confirmation that it can be designed and engineered. And the location of that sidewalk has also been discussed as well. I gave a quick heads up to the airport administrator because the sidewalk would be going up to his property. So I sent an email to Mike Safranek. His one concern was that if there was any potential impact to the airport and to access onto the airport. And it's my understanding there's fencing through there. But I just wanted to ask Emily or Megan, when you looked at the feasibility, at what point does the sidewalk end with respect to the fencing at the airport property and the vegetation? It's my understanding there's additional vegetation as well as the fencing. And I don't think it's on your property. I think it's just beyond. So I don't think it affects the airport, but I just wanted to know if you could confirm that.
Yes, the sidewalk along Sugar Hollow Road should end. I designed it to a point where the property line kind of sort of comes to a point over there. So I took that point and drew a line perpendicular to the roadway and truncated the sidewalk at that location. And the fence for the airport is to the north of that. So it shouldn't affect it. And then if it gets, I think that the intent is to then create a crosswalk and go to the other side of Sugar Hollow Road. But where it's going to be on this side, it shouldn't interfere with the fence at all. The fence is down gradient from it, and it's about probably 15 to 20 feet away from where the sidewalk was.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And again, so with respect to that sidewalk, and we looked at this at length and the feasibility of providing the connections, because again, we try to encourage development when we have the chance to make those important connections. And in this case, it ends at Weeks Automotive further up on Sugar Hollow, and then you have the airport property. But there's a scenario where there's a crosswalk, a mid-block at the intersection, and it would be on the other side of Sugar Hollow. Or if the city, if and when the city replaces that bridge network through there, it could be designed on the same side of the road.
Right.
Again, that's a process. If we don't require it, then we're less likely to build it on the bridge side. So encouraging and the project team making this happen, it allows for that important connection. So that design would still need to be worked out, but at least the sidewalk would be there and there's options for connections.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, Emily. I appreciate it.
Okay, and finally, Jen, before I ask for a motion to close the public hearing, let's
Oh,
just ask.
Bob, I'm sorry, Bob has a question too.
Bob, please, you go ahead.
Or just for the applicant. Just for the record, I'm a current customer of the dealership on Federal Road, so curious as to when do you expect this facility to open, and what's going to happen with the old one? You're not going to have any facility there, right?
So for that one, I'll have to defer to Bob Currency of Curry Automotive. He's on the line as well.
Hi, good evening, everybody. We're probably expecting a little over a year for construction. As soon as it's done, we will be relocating Mercedes operations to this site. And for the current site, we're not sure yet. We may be putting the possibility of putting another franchise. We may rent it. We may sell it to someone else that will put a dealership in there. So we're not really 100% sure at this point. We have several options.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commission members, at this time for the applicant or staff? Okay, well, for a lot of testimony on this one, I guess we've come full circle. Unless there's anything else, commission members, I will entertain a motion to close.
So moved.
Motion made,
Second.
motion by Mr. Sylvain. I think that one was seconded by Ms. Hofstadter. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing this public hearing, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This public hearing is closed. Jen, do you want to move this to item 3 under old business? To have this
Please.
motion, anyone?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Helen. Do I hear a
Second.
second? Motion made and seconded to move this to item 3 under our old business agenda for discussion and possible action. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Who
Opposed?
seconded? I didn't see. Who
Bob.
think I
seconded
did.
Helen's?
Think Bob
Okay,
did.
thank you, Bob. Thank
Okay, great. Thank you. This item is now item 3 under our old business agenda. Okay, moving along. Again, item 2 under continuation, 95 Mill Plain Road LLC's application for special exception site plan approval for self-storage, self-service storage, Diamond Point Development, the C80 zone, 95 Mill Plain Road, C14003, special exception 787. As per my comments at the beginning of the meeting and the letter I read into the record, we will hear no testimony on this matter this evening. I will entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Helen, seconded by Mr. Sylvain to continue. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This matter will be continued to our next meeting. Second here. Okay. Old business for discussion and possible action. Item 1. BRT Brookview Commons LLC application for revised site plan approval in accordance with section 10D7C of the zoning regulations for Brookview Commons Phase 2 in the CCBD zone, 333 Main Street, I-13034, special exception 676. Commission members, a draft resolution, a revised site plan, approval with conditions dated June 9th, 2022 was previously distributed. Is there any discussion? Jennifer, would you like to talk about the resolution?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's one of the easier ones I've written in the past few months. It's 2 pages. It's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just, this was to make the bridge one way heading into Brookview Commons, to the existing Brookview Commons. So there's just the standard conditions. If they still have to comply with all the conditions outlined in the original grant, as well as the approval, the most recent approval granted by staff on May 26, 2022, which handles all the phasing. Other than that, they have to file the grant on the land records. They're proceeding. They're going for COs for a handful of units fairly quickly. I think in the next few weeks, I think we're going to start to see that open up. So again, this is, pretty standard.
Yes.
So if you
Thanks.
have any questions.
Any questions on the approval, commission members?
None.
Well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Sylvain, seconded by Ms. Hofstadter to approve the revised site plan approval with conditions. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The revised site plan approval with conditions is approved. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
All right. Item 2, under old business. Hang on. Oh, it's 190 White Street. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
190 White Street LLC, Mars Electric LLC, application for revised special exception, revised site plan to allow expansion of existing daycare center Twinkle Little Star Daycare in the CG20 zone, 190 White Street rear, J13004, special exception 672. The public hearing was open and closed this evening. Would anyone like to comment on it?
Mr. Chairman, I'll take a stab.
ahead.
It's pretty straightforward, just expanding the use to the full size of the building, adding sufficient parking. So it's pretty straightforward. I don't have any issues with it.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, yeah, I agree with Bob. And I can't remember if there are conditions, but I guess the approval would be with those conditions, and that will be written up. So with that, I'm good.
Yeah, understanding that list of conditions or requests has been agreed to, and especially that accessory use issue has been taken care of. I don't see any issues with it, so I would also move to give positive guidance to Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you, and I agree with those comments. Jen, you'll bake the conditions into the approval, and we should be good to go on that one, so.
Yep, that's fine. I'll add, satisfying planning department as well as the engineering department.
So we'll move to item 3 under old business, Pioneer Realty, application for special exception site plan approval for 1, use generating over 500 vehicle trips per day, and 2, sale or rental of automobiles and trucks in accordance with section 685G of the zoning regulations, Curry Automotive in the IL40 zone, 1 and 15 Meyerburg Road, G1877, G18016, special exception 785. That public hearing was closed this evening. Would anyone like to make a comment on this application?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Bob.
I don't have any issues with this. I think it's a good development for that piece of property. It's in line with several of the other German car dealerships right up the street. Although I'll have to go across town now for service, and so it's a little out of my way, but that's okay. I'm happy to see that the traffic issues, there was a satisfactory resolution to the traffic and sidewalk issues there. So pleased to hear that. And other than that, I'm fine with this.
Thank you. Helen, we'll go Helen then Pierre.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Bob's comments, and that's pretty much, I'm in agreement and willing to go.
Thanks, Helen.
Same here. Very much in agreement with Bob's comments, and very glad to hear that a compromise resolution was sorted out on the traffic equipment. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a fair compromise on the camera issue. I'm glad to hear we resolved the sidewalk issue. Some complicated engineering issues arose, but it looks like we're okay on those. I guess I could say what I'm about to say now, that the public hearing is closed. Just so everyone knows, 5 or 6 days a week for 15 years, I drove by the site because I worked at Lee Farm Corporate Park, as did Mr. Kyokyo. He got out a little while ago. So for 5, 6 days a week for 15 years, I had to look at Danbury topsoil over there, that piece of junk, disgusting looking concrete bunker. It looked like it was bombed in World War II. And now, as soon as I move out, 6 months later, there's going to be this gleaming, beautiful Mercedes-Benz dealer there. And, that's just my luck. So I wish the applicant, the best of luck with that. And it has to be an improvement over what was there. So that's my input. And Jennifer, is that enough guidance for you to do your resolution?
Yeah, I just want to mention pretty quickly that there's going to be quite a few administrative requirements. We still have outstanding comments, and, the engineering department has to review the revisions. That'll be a condition. And, we'll need the design plans for the sidewalk on Sugar Hollow. We'll work with the traffic engineer and construction services to make sure that design is satisfactory to both departments as well as planning and zoning. you know, there's a conveyance on Wallingford because of the widening, there's sidewalk easements. The language with respect to the $50,000 payment towards the traffic equipment, that'll be in there. And then some of the other standard. I'm sure there'll be more, but those are the ones kind of off the top of my head that you'll see in the resolution.
Well, this resolution will not be a two-pager, Jen.
No.
It'll be back to your old form of writing resolutions, or Joanne will write it, longer than 2 pages. So, okay, you've got your guidance.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
That wraps up old business. We have 3 referrals this evening, as we know. I guess we could just keep going, right? It's 8:21. Yeah, we're good. The first one is the 824 for the state surplus property, and the last 2 are regard to Canada. So we'll go to the first one, an 824 referral, June 2022 City Council Agenda, item number 9, state surplus property at 71 Main Street, I-15290. Is it Sharon or Jen going to handle that one?
I'll take care of it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Hi, for the record, Sharon Calitro. So the city council received a request to authorize the mayor and the Office of Corporation Counsel to negotiate and finalize conditions related to acquisition of the property at 71 Main Street. This, as many of you know, is the property at the corner of Main and Park Place. It contains the former state courthouse building. The Department of Administrative Services has offered the city the opportunity to purchase that property. It's approximately a little over 14,500 square feet, gross square feet in size, on a third of an acre in the CBD zoning district. And it was in use with some court functions until probably, I think, August of last year, adjudicating some, I think, family court issues. So the courthouse was built in 1899. It's an iconic structure for those of you who know it and recognize it. It's listed on the state register of historic places and included in the National Register Main Street Historic District. It is not individually listed on the National Register. Purchase of this building can provide lots of opportunities for the city. It can provide extra space for a variety of uses, from city departments and offices to museum storage. And Bridget at the Danbury Museum and Historical Society has been involved in discussions relative to the purchase and use. It can provide some exhibit space, and it can also provide a performance venue. If hopefully none of you have been in there for any other reason, but it is, I took a tour of there last year with some members of the legislative delegation and council and the mayor and others. And the courtroom is just like a step back in time. It's really beautiful. It's in very good condition, and it does offer some opportunities for both some practical uses for the city, as well as maintaining a real historic structure that's, you know, in pretty good condition, and could add to the number of venues available for the city and become part of the economic driving forces downtown. So we do not have any, based on, again, the historic structure and the role it plays in our history and our urban landscape downtown, because it is pretty iconic. We have no issue with the recommendation for a positive referral. Obviously, the council and the Office of Corporation Counsel will have to negotiate the purchase price. But in terms of getting the building into the city's list of historic structures, I think is a good idea and will help save it. Again, it would be conditioned on all the requirements and meeting the legal documents should be in a form and content acceptable to the Corporation Council, and City Council obviously would have to agree to the terms of the acquisition.
Thank you, Sharon. Any questions for Sharon on this one? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for a positive referral if you're so inclined.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. I would make the motion for a positive referral on this to purchase this state land for the city.
Second?
Second.
I think that was Mr. Chiocchio. Motion made by Mr. Sylvain, seconded by Mr. Kyokyo for a positive referral. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This matter gets a positive referral. And we will move right to item 2. 838 referral, petition of Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend 10J of the zoning regulations, extend temporary moratorium on acceptance of applications, amendments, petitions, and issuance of zoning approvals for or related to cannabis establishments for 1 year or upon future action of the zoning commission, whichever date comes first. Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Sharon Calitro, I'm the planning director. So I submitted this petition on behalf of the city to amend the language in section 10J to extend the moratorium that's in place until July, currently in place until July 29th, 2022 for an additional 1 year, or until July 29th, 2023, or upon the future action of the zoning commission, whichever date comes first. And the reason for that is we have, staff has submitted another petition that is currently under consideration. And should that petition, should there be no action on that petition, should that petition be denied, we'd like to just continue the moratorium until the city determines the best way to regulate the cannabis uses in the city. So it's kind of a belt and suspenders, giving some leeway for the zoning commission to consider the pending petition for which a public hearing is scheduled to open on July 12th. So this will just, if they act sometime in July, fine, it means nothing. If the zoning commission does not act, then the moratorium will stay in place. So I would ask that you adopt this amendment.
Thank you, Sharon. Helen first, then Carrie. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. What, if any, input does the state have on this action?
They don't have any input on it. We're allowed to adopt a moratorium while for the reasons we did initially. And we did it for a period of time within which we would evaluate, and it was stated in the language of 10J. So this would just extend that time frame. We have proposed regulations and they were submitted simultaneously with this petition. It's just a timing issue.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure they weren't involved. Thank you.
No, not at all. No. So
Understanding why we're doing this, and we're kind of hedging our bets and giving ourselves a backup plan here, I would make a motion for a positive referral on this item.
Motion made for a positive referral. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Just a brief discussion. This again, Sharon, this is the easier one of the two. This is just to give us a little breathing room so that if we did not extend it, the line in the sand is July 29th of 2022. And if the zoning commission can't get it done by then, and we don't extend the moratorium, we might have a problem on our hands. So that's what it really is. This is really a timing issue, a little bit of breathing room, right?
correct. That's correct.
There has been a motion and a second for a positive referral. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This matter, the matter of the extending the temporary moratorium gets a positive referral. We were going to go right to our second referral. No, make that our third. 838 referral, petition Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend Section 2B, 3C4, 5A2B, 5A5, 5B2B, excuse me, 5B5, 6A2B, 6B2B, 8C4C, 10J, 11B2, 11B3 of the zoning regulations. Amendments to clarify definitions of cannabis establishments, allow and regulate specific adult use cannabis establishments in specified zoning districts, establish a parking requirement, and prohibit issuance of variances for said cannabis uses. Ms. Calitro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff has submitted this petition to amend those various sections of the zoning regulations. to regulate certain cannabis establishments in the city of Danbury. So I'm going to walk through them. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me. There's a lot, but I just wanted to start by reminding the commission that prior to the moratorium and amendments that were adopted last year, which defined cannabis uses as they were defined in the state law that was passed, the zoning regulations in the city of Danbury allowed 2 medical marijuana dispensaries in either the CG20 or the C80 zoning districts. The retail sale, subject to a bunch of conditions, the retail sale of recreational marijuana in those facilities was prohibited, and medical marijuana production facilities in Danbury were also prohibited. At the time we adopted the moratorium, included in that petition were some newly defined uses. Again, those were uses which were synonymous with the licenses for which you could obtain from the Department of Consumer Protection for various uses associated with cannabis. Those definitions, word for word, came right out of the regulations that were approved and adopted at the state level last year.
So I just want to stop you for 1 quick second, because Helen asked in a previous referral, did the state have any input into the extension of the moratorium? The answer to that was no, but the state had considerable input into this particular referral, which is the wording Sharon is referring to. So I just wanted to make sure I got that in. Sharon, please go right ahead.
Okay, well, we did, again, we took the definitions for those uses for which somebody could obtain a license at DCP, which is the Department of Consumer Protection. We took the definitions directly from the state law and we put them into our zoning regulations. Why? Because as you know, our zoning regulations are permissive. Unless you're specifically permitted in a district, you are prohibited. So we haven't defined the use, and then we didn't say that they could go anywhere. So and that was done for a reason, so that we could take the year to determine kind of where we necessarily wanted to be. So again, word for word, we took those definitions for the 11. We had 2 of them. We had a production facility, we had a dispensary facility. They've kind of reworded those definitions, but we took the other 9 last year directly from the state law. So what I did in this petition was go back and look at those definitions, and with a little more time to, again, they adopted, the state passed this regulation in June of last year. We adopted the petition in July to kind of, put a hold on everything. So over the course of the year, we looked at the definitions, and as you know, we don't approve a use by necessarily a person. The state defines these uses. They license a person. That's how the definition reads. So I went back, I looked at it, and I just decided that it would be more consistent with our zoning scheme to add words like a facility in which there is a person, because we define uses as in our regs as an establishment, a structure which is used for a facility in which there is. So I made that amendment in all of the in all the definitions of those uses for which you could get a license from DCP. So that, again, those are the majority of what was done in the definition section. In terms of the cannabis cultivator, I also indicated that it had to take place, all the cultivation and growing, propagation, should we allow that use, had to take place indoors. And why is that? Because I don't think we need any cannabis farms out in the open. So I wanted to be sure of that. So I added some additional words to that, as well as for a cannabis micro cultivator. So we would ensure, so that's a person that gets licensed to grow and propagate cannabis. And so I wanted to be sure that that occurred indoors. So I added some additional language for that. And we also added a limit on the size to 10,000 square feet. So the the definition in the state law says that it's a cultivator is not less than 2,000 or more than 10,000 square feet of gross space, but they are allowed to expand as authorized by the commissioner in 5,000 square foot increments up to 25,000 square feet. Once they get to 25,000 micro, once they get to 25,000, they got to convert their license to a production facility. My feeling was, our feeling was that let's start with 10,000 square feet and cap it at that. If we don't have any issues, we could amend the definition and then allow it to be bigger. But why right out of the gate say you can continue to grow as the commissioner deems okay, but we're not really sure how that impacts Danbury. So I put that cap on the size limit. We also added some language that you can't do any direct sales at the facilities to consumers. So micro cultivators can sell to consumers right now by delivery. What we don't want is micro cultivators to start to become a retail establishment. Like, should anything change? Because the way it, and I'll go through this later on, but they right now are proposed to be in IL 40 and IG 80 districts. And if they decided, and if the state at some future date allowed them to sell out of the facility, that would be more like a retail component of something. And we thought that that shouldn't be allowed. So we put that provision in there so that you couldn't do a direct sale to consumers from this facility. They can, however, be delivered. So micro cultivator can have somebody on staff until, it's a little complicated, until such time as a certain number of delivery services are authorized by the state, but they can have a staff person deliver their product to a consumer in one of their vehicles. And that's how they get to charge the tax for it, because they're delivering directly to a consumer. They're basically selling a retail product. But again, we changed the definition so you couldn't actually walk up to the place at some time in the future and buy direct from there. So other than that, there are no, and as I indicated before, a facility in which there is a person. Oh, the only other change I made in these 11 definitions is that there could be some in the future. The State Department of Consumer Protection or the state may determine that DCP isn't, the department that's going to oversee this. So we wanted to be sure that should it not be DCP and be some other state sanctioned department or agency, that we didn't have to go back and revise our regs. So if they decide to transfer it to, I don't know, ATF or, some other, or they create a whole cannabis department and they become the licensing people, that we're good with that. So those are all the changes to the definition section.
Mr. Pio,
I have just a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the medical marijuana regs that are currently on the books, will they change at all?
Yes. So yes. So that's that. I was just going to jump into that. So
Okay. So I'll wait then. You can.
Okay. So let me explain. So the next section, if you just flip to page 3 of the proposed text amendment. So 3C4, the proposal is to delete what's there today. And what's there today are the regulations that were approved in 2020, regarding the medical marijuana dispensary facilities. So that had to do with the 2 facilities. They couldn't engage in the retail sale. They had a bunch of permitting things associated with it and some distance requirements. So in this petition, we're going to propose to delete them and replace them in their entirety with what I have on begins on page 4 as 3C4 cannabis establishments. So that this section would now provide the requirements and additional use regulations associated with the 4 cannabis establishments that we would allow in the city, one of which is the medical. So we would still allow that on its own, but there would be 3 others. That
Okay.
would-
Okay, so what, maybe I missed it, I don't know. So what is a medical marijuana retailer? Is it
That's just a regular, you can go in off the street and buy recreational marijuana. Like you can go to 7-Eleven and buy a
Slurpee.
Slurpee.
so any, I guess, under cannabis retailer can sell any type of cannabis, including some with a medical prescription, is that?
No, so,
That's the hybrid one.
yes, so here's how, the 4 uses that we're proposing to be allowed in the city, and the only 4, everything else is prohibited. So let's just concentrate, out of the 11, we're only allowing 4.
Yep.
One of them is a cannabis dispensary facility, which used to be called the medical marijuana dispensary. So that's that equals the same thing. So the medical marijuana is the cannabis dispensary facility. That's how the new license would read. The second one is a hybrid retailer. That's a facility, or in the state's eyes, a person, but if to us, it would be a facility that can sell both medical marijuana for people who have cards for palliative care, as well as recreational. They can do both. That's the hybrid.
Yep.
Then there's a straight cannabis retailer, which is just sells adult use. Anybody can go in and buy adult use cannabis. Obviously, they have to get a license from the state, but there's not a palliative medical card required. And then there's the micro cultivator, which is on the grow side of things.
Okay.
More so on the grow. So those are only 4.
So I guess the medical one, it's really pointless now, right? Because anybody, is it a different product, I guess? Is that why it's different?
No, they called it something else. They referred to section 420, which is the palliative, but they defined it in the new law as a cannabis dispensary facility. So we just carry it over the same definition. And then for the most part, we carried over the same regulations relative to the dispensary that were in the previous one, like we have distance requirements and things like that. But that's where people who have a medical card for an illness can go in and there is a licensed pharmacist at that facility. That's what makes it different from a retailer, which is just like you can hire anybody to work there and they just, it's just like a retail shop. A medical facility has to have a licensed pharmacist that is kind of sort of overseeing the whole thing.
Yep. Okay. All right.
To state this just a slightly different way, if I may, and I'll just try to say what Sharon just said a slightly different way if this is true. The state of Connecticut's first foray, if you will, into the legalization of marijuana was for medical marijuana.
Right. Yep.
We changed our regs to add wording regarding medical marijuana dispensaries. That's what we did previously. What Sharon has done now is gone back, literally, the easy part of her job was to simply just strike everything we did on medical marijuana dispensaries, just draw a line through it all. And then that's the easy part. The hard part of her job was to replace those things she just struck with a complete new text dealing with the entire matter of recreational and medical marijuana and memorializing it all into our regs. So that's kind of what we're doing here, out with the old, if you will, and in with the new.
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct. And I would just add that, again, they gave it a new term. So we just followed along so that everything would be consistent.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we
There's
would
not
allow-
really that much
Oh.
difference other than there's a pharmacist that you have a medical card and maybe it's a different product. Okay, I get that.
It is a different product and there's oversight. It's
Yeah,
a whole
got
different level of oversight when you have a licensed pharmacist whose license is on the line versus when you go into just some retail store and there's, you just say, I want some A, some B, versus I have some medical use and there's some pharmacist that has to oversee everything. So there is a difference with it. Again, we started off conservatively in terms of the number of uses. We didn't allow all of the uses that the state has now said you can get a license for. We kind of focused on those uses, for which the city may get some tax benefits for. Okay, there's been a lot of discussion about, the additional revenue and what could that do. So we kind of started small. We had already opened the door with the medical. So, that this was kind of a logical next step in terms of which uses we allowed and how many. We did, however, make sure that there were specific locational requirements for those uses, permitting requirements for those uses that were particular to, what the license was issued for. So let me just walk through them real quick and just, again, stop me if you have any questions because, there's a lot of detail to it. So number one, so again, let me just say cannabis dispensary facility, AKA that's the medical dispensary, right? Cannabis hybrid retailer, which can do both medical and retail. A cannabis retailer, just retailer, no medical card needed. And then the micro cultivator, which is a small grower, they could also sell directly to consumers and they can sell to via delivery to people who have a medical card as well as their caregivers. But that has to be done off-site. So those are the four. Those four uses would be considered special exception uses under the provisions that are drafted. Obviously, that means they come back to you. And I'm just going to walk through the 3C4 proposed regs. So it should be the only permitted. It should be permitted as the principal use on the site and not be allowed as an accessory use. That means you can't kind of layer all different licenses on top of each other, and before you know it, you have a whole bunch of things going on the site. Only one cannabis established located in a facility. Why? Well, let's take an example of you're a bakery and now you want to bake brownies that have cannabis in them. Should they be done in the same facility? And we're saying, no, if you want to bake cannabis brownies, go find a facility to bake cannabis brownies, leave the bakery alone. Again, for the time being, let's start off conservatively. This is a foray into a new area that, obviously super new to the state of Connecticut, not new in some states, but let's enter the waters gingerly. Obviously, you have to comply with all state laws and regulations. And then I went through and kind of divided up the uses. So what we've said is that in the city of Danbury, at any time, there can only be 2 hybrids or a combination of 1 hybrid, 1 dispensary, and 1 retailer. So 1 dispensary, one retailer, and 1 hybrid equals 2 hybrids. We're just saying you could divide them up, that's all. That's how I've proposed it. So if somebody just wanted to do a retail, you would still be able to have a hybrid in the city.
Are you saying, Sharon, that you could have 1 of each of the 3 also?
You could have either 2 hybrids or 1 of each of the 3.
Okay.
You could have 1 hybrid, 1 retail. So if the medical wanted to operate on its own and a retailer wanted to operate its own, you could still have a hybrid somewhere. Or you could just have 2 hybrids.
Understood.
Again,
Thank you.
let's start off small. And those facilities, you can only be in the CA80 or CG20 zoning districts. Why? Well, we already allowed the medical in the same zone. So it kind of made sense to me. Those are our, pretty general or arterial commercial zones. Let them go in those same locations.
As you get into the distances and where they go, can I ask a quick question beforehand? It
Yeah,
might
sure.
save
Let me
a
just get to
second.
that. Yep, let me
Sure.
just get to that. So,
Okay.
we added a provision that access shall be provided solely from a collector or arterial street for these uses. Why? Because we don't want them in the neighborhoods. There are some CG20 lots that, are on local roads. This is a use, we're not sure how it's gonna operate. So keep it to the arterials or collectors. And the state had allowed us, so I'm on page 5, number 4, the state has allowed us to add regulations on the hours. So we included some hours in trying to offset, our busy hours on the arterials and collectors. So we included that. We took a look at what was going on in other places, and we took a look at the rush hours and things like that. So we added, those hours in Monday through Saturday, 9 to 8, and Sundays 9 to 3. And then in terms of how we got to the distance requirements, I then separated the dispensary facility, which is AKA the medical, from the hybrid retailer and the retailer. And so if you want to ask me a question before I go through that, Perry.
Quite simply, did you get those numbers from state guidelines or from other communities? And
I would
not
say
that I have any problem.
I would say from both the state
Okay.
recommendations. We know what the state is looking for. Again, we already had some distance requirements in our regulations. So I continued that for whether it was for the dispensaries or the hybrid or the retailer. And we added some other things that distance requirements from sensitive receptors, I would say. Again,
Okay.
This is a foray into a new thing. Let's all remember, it's still a Schedule I drug at the federal level. They might not be enforcing those regulations, but it is still that. And we need to be sensitive. This isn't the same kind of use. This is a different kind of a use. And let's just be careful and conservative about it.
Absolutely.
So we tried to,
Go ahead.
yeah. We tried to look at how you actually measure. If some of you can recall, we've gotten into scenarios in the past relative to how you measure, whether you walk the street and turn up the driveway and turn down the sidewalk. And we just said, listen, we're going to do a straight line measurement from point A to point B. And so we've outlined that specifically, so it's clear how you measure and from where. So pretty much on the dispensary side, it's the 500 feet to a municipal building, public park, public recreation. Again, this is for the dispensary, which is only doing medical. This is very similar or pretty much exactly the same as the previous regs, right? But we just clarified the point-to-point measurement, and we added some transitional housing and shelter from the homeless to those sensitive receptors. In addition, in terms of the distances from schools, which is 1,000 feet, this is again similar to what the medical dispensary was, and we just clarified kind of how you measured it. And then we added in the school bus stop location, just because we thought that could be important. There's a lot of school kids waiting on corners, and maybe you don't want to use that dispenses medical marijuana in the same distance requirement is in on the hybrid and the retailer, but from where a school bus stops and lets kids off. Go ahead, Perry, and then
I would agree with your thought process and the idea of being conservative, and I don't have any problem with these distances or anything like that. I'm just curious, as part of the process, did you look at certain locations to see if all these things added up, if there are locations that will work? And hypothetically, if there was a certain location that already existed in Danbury for previously medical use, have you looked at that location as to whether it would be eligible under these regulations?
So, yeah, good, very good question. And in terms of, we did a whole analysis, and that's why this took a long time to kind of formulate. Once we kind of got the regulations and how we thought it, you know, it would work in our zoning scheme, we needed to test them, right? Because to draft 7 pages, whatever pages, and then really not have any lot that this could, any of these uses could go on, is in effect a prohibition of them. So we tested scenarios, and the not as much related to the medical dispensary, but the hybrid and the retailers. There's a distance requirement from a residential zone, which is very similar to many communities. They have the same thing. They actually have tighter restrictions or distance measurements than we put in. Yeah, we tested that, and we used that as kind of the fulcrum. So we looked at every lot in the CG20 and CA80 zone, and what is the distance to, and again, if you flip to page 6 on the distance, so the nearest, what it says for those uses, the nearest legal parcel boundary line of the land proposed to be used for the retailer or hybrid retailer or the retailer shall be no closer than 200 feet from any residential zoning district boundary. That was the fulcrum that we used in the test measurement. So we pulled our GIS maps, we looked at every residential, we looked at every parcel in those zones in the city, and went 200 feet and said, are there lots that are outside the 200 feet? And yes, there are. And I mean, I have them obviously in my file. And then we looked at, obviously we looked at, you know, schools that we knew, and, you know, things that we knew. Do I know where every bus stop is from, you know, the school district? No, but I'm not concerned. If you can't meet the 200 feet, then the other dimensions don't mean anything. So that was the one kind of we used as a test. Were there a series of lots that could meet at least this requirement? And there were in the case of either the dispensary, the hybrid, or the retailer. So we did that analysis. And we also did it for the micro cultivator on the IL40 and IG80. So I do have a list of, and you know, I have my notes on it. Yes, this is needed, but you know, the airport's within this distance from this zone, or there's a school across the street, and so it might be 200 feet from a residential zoning district boundary, but there's a school across the street, so that lot's out. We did go through that analysis, and that's how we kind of came up with the distances.
Okay.
Okay, so again, so we've outlined distances from what we call sensitive receptors, and they are, and some of them, including the schools, are those distances for which the state would be considering if somebody were to apply to them to get a license. They would say, are you within 1,000 feet of a school? So we kind of use the same thought process. Okay, and so then we looked at the micro cultivators. We thought of them more as an industrial use. We said, okay, we'll have one. Let's test one little growing facility. Why? The state's only issuing 4 micro cultivator licenses in this round. We don't need more than one in Danbury. And the possibility that the state may actually grant 2 in Danbury and leave the rest of the state is probably nil. So 1 is enough for now. Let's see how it works. I don't want to also use up industrial zoned land necessarily, but not that I mind hydroponic farming, but there are other industrial uses. So I didn't think it was really necessary at this point in time to say, we needed 2 micro cultivators. Let's see how 1 is. Somebody can find up to 10,000 square feet inside. Let's see how it works. And as you know, there's IG80 land, you know, Old Sherman Turnpike. They're scattered around the city, you know, out by the Plumtrees Road. There's industrial property around the airport. There's industrial property. So again, we tested those distance requirements to be sure that there were actually lots that could meet those requirements. And then we just got into on page 7, which are again starting from G to the end and I know there's a lot, so I apologize, but we looked at, should they be, we don't want an accumulation of these uses all in one place at this time. It's like the liquor store thing. There should be some distance between them. So we put in a distance of 1 mile apart, which again is consistent with some of the regs that I've met from I've read from other communities. Signage complies with our regulations, site lighting complies with our regulations, refuse areas should be screened and containers locked. Why? I mean, we don't know how people are going to throw out this stuff, and we don't want people dumpster diving. So we put in a requirement for that. Off-street loading in compliance with our regs. We have a provision, no portion of any establishment, so therefore, shall be located in the same building or any portion thereof used for residential purposes. Why? Because, when you use this stuff, when you produce this stuff, when you sell it and it's open and there's an odor to it. So let's keep our residential uses separate. We have a prohibition against any of these uses being on lots in whole or in part, which border Main Street. I mean, we're trying to revitalize Main Street. I don't believe that this is the use that we need to encourage there. There's lots of other uses we could have there. This is the carryover, no cannabis established, accessed by a drive-in or drive-through facility. It's basically what we said for the dispensaries, for the medical dispensaries. I carried that to everything else. We don't want people waiting in cars. Why? Because someone then could make an argument. It's the same as, the fast food, and before you know it opens up a whole Pandora's box. No cannabis shall be applied, ingested, or consumed inside or on the premises of a cannabis dispensary, hybrid retailer by cultivator. Those are some words right out of state. I'm just reiterating them out of state law. So you can't go in the parking lot and smoke it. Well, let's just reiterate that. And then in P, I just put in some additional site plan requirements, which we felt were important. You can't get a waiver for things to change a use. We want to know if you're going to put a use into an existing facility, we want to know what this use is. So you just can't get a waiver for it. A transfer of ownership or license issued by the state has to come back. Again, why? I think at this point in this venture, foray into this, we should know what this entity is, who this person is that wants to do this. There are also some requirements for state in the state regulation about change of ownership. So we added that. You got to include a copy of the provisional license from the state, and you have to give us, like how the package store have a distance requirement, and you have to give us a map that shows you the distance. You don't get into it as much as the zoning commission, but they have to give us a map telling us you're 2,000 feet from another package store. This is kind of the same map that we would want to ensure that the distance you're required to be away from another establishment that sells cannabis. And then some additional things, which would kind of be like an add to the 10C4A standards, which you guys deal with all the time. To ensure safety and cleanliness and that the vicinity is maintained, we need an odor abatement plan. Again, this product has an odor associated with it. We want to know what you're going to do about it. We want to know how you're going to take care of the exterior premises and keep it clean. And we want to know how it's going to be secured. There are security requirements for the state licensure, but I think applicants should be telling us what they're doing. Is it, where the cameras, where the monitors, and we're not saying you have to give us ins and outs of the system, but we want to be sure that the property is properly secured. We also, there's been a lot of studies, and there is actually a new land use code in the Institute of Traffic Engineers trip generation manual for cannabis dispensaries and cannabis facilities. So we said that you need to prepare a traffic impact analysis. And this is the code you need to use. And for the dispensaries and the hybrids and retailers, and the code that you use for the micro cultivators is the same as an industrial use. And I have that back up as well. It's an IT land use code 882. So they've done some studies about how many trips. So 252 weekday trips, 259 Saturday trips per 1,000 gross floor area. That's a lot of traffic. So you should be getting a traffic impact analysis for each application. And then finally, prior to issuance of the zoning permit, you got to give us, the zoning enforcement officer, the final license that you get from the state. You, as you do with any special exception, can add additional, impose additional and reasonable conditions to ensure compliance with the regulations. And then finally, we added 2 provisions that you can't get a variance for this section of the regs. You can't get a use variance. So in other words, you can't get a variance to allow one of these uses in a zone that now you're not saying that you should be in. And you shouldn't get any variances from any of the provisions of these new regulations. And that really is a health, to protect the public health, welfare, and safety, and meets the requirements under 8.6 of the statute, 8.6A3 of the general statutes, which say that zoning regulations can specify the extent to which uses shall not be permitted by variance in districts in which uses are otherwise not allowed. That's for the use variance. And then the prohibition against any variance is really rationally related to the protection of the public health, welfare, and safety. So those are the regulations. And then as you can see, as you go on page 9, these are just adding the uses to either the CG20, the CA80, getting rid of the old medical marijuana dispensary regulations that would then not apply, because these would take precedence. The industrial district regulations for the micro cultivator on page 11 under 6A2 and 6A2B and 6B2B, allowing them as special exception uses in those zones. We also added a parking requirement, 8C4A, because there is a parking, if you can imagine, the parking generation manual from ITE now has a demand calculator for these uses. So we added that, so there couldn't be any confusion about, well, what one do we use? So we added that. And then finally, almost finally, we deleted the temporary moratorium language because you would approve these regulations.
If I can interrupt you for 1 second, my apologies to my fellow commission members. Your chairman has to take, I'm going to make a privileged motion for a 5-minute recess, and then we'll reconvene. Just give me 1 second here.
Okay.
We've really chugged along tonight through a lot of important stuff. I'm impressed.
Yeah, if I may, that's an amazing presentation, Sharon.
Thank you. We are still on YouTube, so we're not really in recess,
sorry.
just so you know.
I'm trying not to say anything officially related, just chit chat.
It's okay. Chit chat. We're good. Gave me an opportunity to have some
Aaron,
water.
should I stop it? I mean, I stopped.
No, we
the
just don't need
recording,
to have a discussion about anything. That's fine.
Right, okay. I mean, I stopped the recording, but I didn't stop the YouTube.
That's fine.
And we are back if everyone else is back.
Good here.
Go right ahead, Sharon.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think it was up to section 10, which is, so we went into section 10J. We proposed obviously to leave that section intentionally blank and delete the temporary moratorium, because if this gets approved, all that language is moot. And we've done that in the past. This is kind of our, we leave it in the zoning regs in case we need it. And then the revisions to section 11, 10B2 and 10B3 are those for those restrictions on the issuance of variances. So nobody can go to the ZBA and try to get a variance for those things. So again, in some, we propose to provide for a limited number of very specific establishment uses in Danbury, highly regulated with restrictions that we feel protect the health, welfare, and safety. We've, as I said earlier, we already kind of sort of were in this a little bit with the dispensary facilities. This takes it a little bit further, but doesn't open the door for everything and a vast number of these uses in the city, so we can see if it works. There's always the opportunity to allow more in the future if we find that there are no issues with it. And in doing this work, we looked at the applicable sections of that special section, Public Act 21-1, the June special session, which is the Responsible and Equitable Regulation of Adult Use Cannabis Act, other ordinances and regulations of other towns and cities, not just in Connecticut, but in Massachusetts and Denver and in various places. We have guidance from DCP. We've been on webinars. We have guidance from organizations, CCM and various other organizations, OPM, technical publications, and of course, I've sought legal advice from the Office of the Corporation Counsel. So with all of that, that's the proposal for the city, and to amend the regulations, you need a referral from planning that, these are consistent with kind of the principles of good planning and being fair and equitable in the city, and in compliance with the POCD in those aspects. Again, this is a new use for us. There's a lot of, we just need to venture into it thoughtfully, and if we're going to do that thoughtfully and with care and restrictions like we do other uses, with still reminding ourselves that until the feds do something about it, it's still a Schedule I drug. There's no Safe Banking Act in place at the moment, so there's the monetary aspect of it. On the other side, there might be some economic benefit to the city based on the collection of taxes, which is a whole nother thing, and I can answer questions if you want to hear about that as well. But the revenue that's collected can only be spent in certain for certain reasons. DCP is notified. They notified the city has to collect the 6%, and then they get to use it for specific things. So there's some there could potentially be some economic value. We're really not going to know until we venture into this about whether there are costs that eat away at that or not. So.
Well, Sharon, thank you very much. It's unbelievable. You'll have to do this exact same thing longer when the zoning commission has their meeting and get the public hearing. But referrals are a limited form of presentation, but we still had to go through a lot of hard work there. Like I said, striking the old regs was easy. Authoring the new regs was hard. So, so job well done. Anything for Sharon, members? Bob, Mr. Kiokio.
Sharon, do you know how many state licenses there are available for retailers, hybrids, and dispensaries?
I do. So in this first round, the state, it will be issuing 12 retailer licenses, 6 general license, 6 social equity licenses. So that's a whole nother discussion, kind of sort of off my radar, but 12, I think they got 15 or 16,000 applications.
Wow.
Okay, the hybrids, 4 in the first round, 2 general licenses, 2 social equity licenses. So 4. And micro cultivators, they're going to issue 4 licenses, 2 general, 2 social equities. And then if you have an established license for a medical facility, you don't have to go through the lottery process. So AKA the existing use on Mill Plain Road already has, which has a current medical license, will also have a retailer license.
Right.
So they get a retailer license by virtue of the fact that they're kind of already here.
Oh, okay. So effectively we'll have one immediately.
Assuming they can meet the other requirements of the regs.
Yeah, okay. And I thought that when we approved that, there was a drive-through was approved. That is.
No, we
do
did not
that?
approve the drive-through. We actually,
Okay.
right,
Okay.
we denied the drive-through.
Okay, good. Okay. I don't have any other questions. This, great job here. I think, I think it's a good, first stab at this, and let's see how it goes. As you say, there's a pretty limited number of, licenses available, in the first go around. So I don't know how much we'll see of this, but, I think the limitations here are good for a first start, and let's see how it goes. So thank
Anything
you.
else? Anybody? Mr. Sylvain?
Sharon, excellent job. I think this is very thorough. It's clear you guys did your research and put a lot of time and effort into this, and I thank you for that. And I agree with the approach as it stands. Start small, and if it goes well, we can always expand it. But as Bob said, with the numbers that are going out there, probably the right number anyways. We're not going to see more than that. And just one question, is that 105 facility eligible by location according to our regs via your tests?
Well, they can remain as their, for their medical license. I didn't look at really very specific, but they have options. Let's just say they have options. If they can't do a hybrid there, they can pick up and take their retailer license and go somewhere else for that portion of it. So
Understood.
they can remain where they are because, as you know, they were approved under the regs, so they would remain pre-existing. If they didn't meet the new dispensary regulations, they would be a pre-existing legal non-conforming, right, use. And if they couldn't meet the retailer or the hybrid portion, should they want to convert? Now they have to convert to a hybrid. They just don't become they have to convert to or they can keep a medical and they can get a retailer and go somewhere else. They have
Understood.
options.
I was just curious if you had
Yeah, no,
looked
that's
at
okay.
the
And
hybrid
remember,
side
we
of
have
it.
to look at the whole city, right? We have to look at the city as a whole and not,
Just
we
hypothetical.
understand that they're there. There's no question
Yeah.
about that.
Understood. All right, thank you.
All right, I just want to say, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please go ahead, Helen.
I just want to say thank you for all that hard work too. You can tell many hours of good research went into it. And I'm sure you dreamt about it at night too, whatever. But
I think I'm eligible for a medical card now. I'm just kidding.
So
Just
I
kidding.
just
whoever's
wanted to-
listening. It's just a
I just
joke.
wanted to say thank you. Well done,
You're
very
welcome.
well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Go ahead, Bob.
One last question. Just curious, Sharon, was there any thoughts at all about changing to a ban at all? A complete ban on it for the city?
We thought about that. That was an option, but we already allow the dispensaries. So it's like you're half in it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the retail component. And so if you just want to, because the medical you've said okay to, and we've determined that was okay. You allowed 2. So we just thought, okay, we'll allow a very specific the specific number of adult use, just the rec component. And then if you do those two, why don't you just try one like little grower and see if, that works too. So that was my thought process. I mean, yeah, we thought about it, but you were already kind of out of the gate. We're already out of the gate, so.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have changed, just maybe things aren't going well in other areas or whether we decided, hey, we did try it, but maybe we should stop it. I just curious, that's all. I'm in favor of this.
No, we went roundabout about, should we just do a blanket prohibition? But again, and in terms of the dispensaries, we were already allowing 2. So if we went back, they would become they would become non-conforming, and then nothing else would happen. And just in the landscape of what's going on in the communities around us and things like that, maybe there's some potential benefits on the economic side of things. And we heard a lot of that from various people over the course of, looking at this. That if you're going to try it, just start really small and see if there's an issue. Like I said, you can always do that, right? You can always go back and amend the regs and say, that's it, take it out of the regs, now they're prohibited. But if you never kind of sort of try, you don't really know. And we're already we got 1 foot in the pond, I think.
Yep, got it. Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Sharon, commission members? I will entertain a motion for a positive referral if you're so inclined.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion for a positive referral to these amendments to the zoning regulations as presented by Sharon.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded, Mr. Kyokyo. Is there any further discussion? None. All in favor of a positive referral, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This matter gets a positive referral. Again, Sharon, a lot of work. Well done. Good luck with
Thank you.
late night for you. Okay. Commission members, looking at our agenda, you'll see under new business, there's a ZBA referral coming up. That'll be at the July 28th meeting. A couple of matters under for reference only. I think that's pretty much it. Jen, anything else, or can we ask for a motion to adjourn?
Nope, that's it.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Kyokyo, seconded by Ms. Hofstadter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 This meeting